Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar brought to you by the Information Lab. Here at the Information Lab, we dedicate ourselves to helping people make sense of data using Tableau and Alteryx. You're back here with Adi, bringing you something special for your spatial analytics and location intelligence. Today, I'm going to share with you a new suite of Alteryx macros designed to make location-based decisions easy. That's the Travel Time suite from a company called Travel Time, formerly known as iGeolize. And they were assisted in creating these macros by work from our consultants here at the Information Lab. With these new macros, we've got tools for geocoding, for creating something called Travel Time isochrones, for implementing what's known as a reachable points filter, for planning routes, and for creating something called a Travel Time matrix. Now, if none of those words seem familiar to you, hey, don't worry, stay tuned. As we go along, we'll take a look at the tools, what they are, and why they're important. Now, before that, a little bit about Travel Time as a company. Travel Time makes locations searchable by the time it takes to get to them using specific transport methods. So when we use these macros, we're able to find solutions to a whole host of location-based challenges, like locating the pharmacy you can reach before it shuts using public transport, discovering all the hotels within 15 minutes drive of that airport you're going to land in next week, finding a new office location with the shortest commute for all employees, identifying which postcodes are most relevant to direct marketing and local advertising campaigns, or figuring out which potential new store gives greatest access to your brand's key demographic. If these are challenges you're looking to solve in your business, the Travel Time macros are a great place to start. The macros themselves are now live on the Alteryx gallery, and the link to download them is in the description of this video. You'll also find a link to sign up for a free trial of the Travel Time API key that you'll need to run each macro. As well as that, there's a link to a file share of all the workflows that I'll be using in this video. Hey, look, we've got you sorted with dummy data, workflows, dashboards, everything you could need to follow along with this super cool set of tools. Now, first up, we're looking at Travel Time macros from a company called Travel Time. But let's pause and take a second, a little bit of time, to think about what Travel Time is. Why should we care? Well, look, the time it takes to travel somewhere is actually a far more effective way of assessing proximity or closeness in our environment. Travel time accounts for the actual route we travel from one place to another, the mode of transport we take, and also the time of day. And this is instead of grouping people into an as the crow flies radius of distance or radial buffer. When we use Travel Time, we can create personalized results that better reflect the real world. Now, when the success of your business decisions absolutely depend on up-to-date, precise data sets based on location, you've got to have those to hand. Radial distances, like you can see in the left-hand image, they simply don't reflect the way people behave in real life. They're imprecise. Now, the second key point for our setup today is thinking about why we want to use Alteryx macros at all. Why do we want to use a macro to get at these data sets? Well, a macro is a workflow or a group of tools in Alteryx that we can collapse into a single tool, and we can then insert that into another workflow. Ultimately, that means that someone else has already done all the hard work to build the processes that we require to do our piece of work. In this case, that's generating queries to send to the Travel Time API, downloading the data, parsing it so it becomes more readable to the human eye, reshaping it into something that's clean and ready to use. Now, you as the end user, you don't need to be able to code. You don't need to spend days writing a complex workflow for a single task. The tools already do that. It's a plug and play situation. Each of the tools have got radio buttons or drop-down menus that guide you through every step of the way. And with so much depending on speed to insight, these macros can give you that advantage. And over the last few weeks, we at the Information Lab have been working really hard to create some case studies to share with you. They're going to highlight how easy this process is. And over the next 3 episodes or so, we'll be sharing an office relocation example, a retail site selection, and a behind the headlines bonus, especially for you. All location intelligence, all the time. So let's dive into it. Let's consider ourselves as a business and we're going to have an office relocation. Now, of course, an office relocation is a significant investment, and many of the costs we can predict. They'll be visible up front. Leasing costs, utilities, insurance, the actual cost of moving our stuff from one office to another. But there's also the potential for an office relocation to impose a significant cost on arguably our most important asset, our workforce. Now, adding time or cost to an employee's commute will cause inconvenience and stress. And the ultimate outcome may be reduced productivity, lack of workplace satisfaction, and potentially resignation. And staff turnover leads to massive expenses in hiring and training costs for those new staff, along with the less quantifiable loss of expertise and knowledge from our departing staff. Analyzing commute data can help us as a business figure out the potential impact of an office relocation on our staff. We can assess the likelihood of staff turnover. We can understand the impacts of rehiring expenses. So let's figure out how we would do that, and we're going to set up our business. So in our example, we're a financial services company. We currently sit in our offices in the City of London. We've got 2 proposed new sites, one to the east in Canary Wharf and the other out west in Chelsea Harbour. So we need to know the impact of moving on employee commute times, but also their actual fares, how much are they going to pay over the year to travel to those sites. So what we're going to do is use some of the new travel time macros to generate data that compares the existing commute time and the cost to each potential site. And once we have the data, we'll use Tableau to help us consider how feasible a move is. So this is our analytics pipeline. Now let's begin with Alteryx, and we're going to generate employee travel times. If you're following along at home, this is the office relocation workflow. So feel free to pause the video and go find that and open it up if you need to. We're here, we're diving in, and this is my Alteryx setup. Now, straight off the bat, you'll probably notice I don't have many tools in the canvas. Excluding the input and the output tool, there's only 9. Not complex. Now first, in order to run this, what we need are our employee home locations. So I have this being fed in. In this case, latitude and longitude, we've pre-filled those because we've created this data. But you could also generate latitude, longitude using the travel time geocoder, and you'd use that on your employee database on their address. Next up, we read in the existing and the proposed office sites, just here. Now in this case, we are going to use the geocoder and we're asking it to generate latitude and longitude values from the office address. Let's look at how that works. We drag the geocode tool in. The first tab is asking for my API credentials, and I get that when I sign up for a free key on the Travel Time website. I go to the configuration tab. Again, radio buttons, drop-down message. A standard geocode is what we want here. Now, a standard geocode will take an address, for example, 25 Watling Street, and return to me the latitude longitude that's associated with that address. A reverse geocode, as it sounds, would do the reverse. It would take an existing latitude longitude and return to me the address that that's associated with. But we're going the standard way. We're going from address to lat long. So let's hit standard, and you can see that I just choose the field that my addresses are in from my data set. In this case, it's office locations. I go to the basic tab here. This, for the geocoder tool, is just a way to help it narrow down the search. I can specify a focus country from this dropdown. If I have the country in a field in my data, I can use that radio button and select that field. When I ask for the top n matches, I want the top 1 match. I just want a single match for each of my addresses. And that's the configuration. And when I run that, you can see that we go from our address, 25 Watling Street with our postcode, and that gets geocoded. Here I've generated latitude and longitude. Now, you'll also notice that we get a number of fields that are coming back really as this sort of what's going on behind the scenes in the tool. And I've decided that for my workflow, I don't need these. So after my geocode tool, I've put in a select and just got rid of the things that I don't think that I want. Now for the travel time matrix tool, we want the data in a single stream. We want the employee home locations in a single stream with the office location. So I'm using the append tool here to get one line per employee per site. If we take employee 545, we've got their ID, their postcode, the latitude, longitude of their home address, and then the office and the latitude, longitude of the office site. So we have current site, proposed site 1, proposed site 2. And we need latitude, longitudes to feed the travel time matrix tool. So it's important that we have those all in a single stream. Now, this is where the magic happens. This is feeding it into the travel time matrix tool. And again, the first tab, we simply configure with our API credentials. In the configuration, we're asking the tool to run off latitude, longitude. So we select where we want to go from and where we want to go to. In this case, we're going from the employee home location to each office location. When we're searching, we can set a time. So in this dropdown, I've just said arrive by, and in the next tab, I'll configure the time that I want to arrive by. But you can also say, hey, I'm going to depart my house at 7 a.m. But because people are going to arrive at roughly the same time for their work day, we're going to set it for arrive by. And then we'll move into the next tab to configure some more of our modes of transport. So check this out. We've got cycling, driving, public transport, and we can select all of these. We can select 1, we can select 2. In this case, I'm just saying public transport. Also notice about halfway down, we've got this little tick option asking us, do we want fare data? Yes, we do. I want, I want single fares, weekly, monthly, the annual fare, so I can really assess what's going on. And then here, as I referred to before, you can set the day that you want to leave on. The time, in this case, is the time I want to arrive by. Remember, I've set that in the previous tab dropdown. And also, we're in the UK at the minute, we're in London, so I'm setting this as British summertime. But this is all configurable. You can change all of this to suit your needs. And with that, we hit run. And what you can see what coming out of that isochrone tool is it is returning the specified fields of travel time in seconds. And we've also got the fare data, and that's in GB pounds. So we have weekly, monthly, yearly, and single fares. But also notice that this information is coming back in long form. We've got this metric column and we've got a value column. And actually that's giving us 6 lines per employee. So you can see 581 here. We've got 6 lines. All we're going to do is convert from long to wide to get each of these key metrics occupying its own column. So to do that, I'm using the crosstab tool here. So I'm saying, give me the information back, keep it at the employee ID level, keep it with their postcode. Tell me for each office, what's the fare, what's the travel time, what's the distance. So here, again, I've got a column for each of my important metrics. And if we take a look at this, what we're seeing for this employee to go to the current site, it's costing them 246-ish pounds per month. And that's the same for each of the sites that we look at for this employee. The single fare slightly different, weekly fare the same, annual fare the same. Okay, so if we're looking at this employee's outcome, their cost is not different, but the time that they spend to get to each of those locations is very different. The shortest amount of time is going to the current site. Any change from that, any change, they're adding time to their commute, with proposed site 2 being the longest addition in time. Now, at this stage, we're really ready to output these data into another form, because Alteryx has created for us the data transformation. We've merged many sources into a single consolidated data set, and I can explain to you, sort of employee at a time, what's going on. But this is not possible to make a decision on. There's too much to see. We've got to use something better to allow us to gain the insight from this data. And that's especially important if you're a decision maker. You need this output to be converted into something easily digestible in order to move forward. And that's where Tableau excels. So what we're going to do is take a look at the Tableau dashboard that we've created here for you. Now you can see it's right here on Tableau Public. It's freely available to download if you're looking to try this out yourself. Don't need to thank us. It's what we're here for. But look, decision makers can interact with this dashboard to make the right choices for their business. The top level information, so across the top of the dashboard, we've got the overall impact to staff. They're both, Canary Wharf and Chelsea Harbour, both of those give an overall increase in commute time. But the journey to Canary Wharf is, on the whole, less. It's also got the least impact in terms of individual increase. If we were to ask our employees to go to Chelsea Harbour, one of them sees an increase of over an hour for their commute. What we also see is this added complexity. Although we've got an increase in the time spent, we've got quite a significant reduction in the annual fare. And that's the reality here. That's the complexity that we're going to be facing. And you've got to have this information to hand to be able to think about putting these questions to your staff. How do you know which they place a higher value on? Is it their time or their take-home pay? And where's the tolerance limit? Where do those things switch? Now, in the lower half of the dashboard, we're showing a variation section. We're trying to show the impact on individual employees to see where these commute impacts are distributed. Who's worse affected? Who's better off? And we can cycle through the metrics using the filters. You can see the shape, the arrow pointing upwards. Each individual employee with that upwards arrow, their commute time is increased. The color lets us know by how much, and we can hover over also to see the specific number of minutes. We can cycle through for price. Apologies for that. We can cycle through for price and also get the same kind of thing. Employees with the blue arrow downwards are seeing a reduction in their annual cost, but some of our staff, if we go to Canary Wharf, would see an increase. Now we've chosen to dig a little bit deeper into the commute time variation, which is over here on the right-hand side for both Canary Wharf and also for Chelsea Harbour. And that's illustrating to us employee by employee. And it's going to flag up, hey, which of these staff have got the longest lines? Who's going to be hardest hit? So you can see how that broadly looks. We've then made it much easier to identify which staff are going to be most affected. So you've just got this little tooltip in the bottom right. That's saying, hey, look, these employees, their commute time is increasing by at least half. You might want to consider reaching out to them, discuss some flexible working options, figure out how much the cost of implementing flexible working is against the payoff if those employees leave the business. How much would it cost to rehire someone? And there you go. We're suddenly moving from talking about underlying tools and raw data, we've moved to actionable insight, to decision making. That's the value of a macro and the templates we have here. You don't need to spend hours putting these together. It's done. You focus on taking your business further, doing what you need to do to grow. And with that big statement, we are out. Remember to head on over to Travel Time for information on how to get your free API key and download the macros from the Alteryx gallery to try them out for yourself. As ever, feel free to reach out to us here at the Information Lab for solutions to your data challenges. And to stay up to date with all our YouTube content, hit the bell icon at the bottom of the screen to subscribe to our channel. Stay safe, and I will see you all next time for our retail store site selection. Cheerio!